I had no idea what I was getting myself into when I saw her standing there, bags packed, ready to walk out the door. It wasn't that she'd been planning this for days or even weeks. It wasn't some slow, drawn-out build-up. No, it was a single moment, one split second, that completely shattered everything. I had been sitting at my desk, the usual hum of the house in the background, my coffee half finished. It was a quiet afternoon, one of those rare moments where I was alone, not feeling the need to check in with anyone or have a conversation. Just silence, the kind I had grown used to over the years. Then she walked in. No warning, no words. She simply stood there, right in the doorway of my office, staring at me with that look. The one that said everything and nothing at the same time. I couldn't place it at first. There was no anger in her eyes, no disappointment. Just something empty. She broke the silence first. "I'm leaving." I blinked, not entirely sure if I had heard her correctly. "What?" I asked, half choking on my confusion. "What do you mean, you're leaving?" Her voice was cold, detached, almost mechanical. "I'm leaving. For a few days. Maybe longer. I don't know." "Wait, what? Why?" I was on my feet now, instinctively trying to close the distance between us. But she didn't move. She stayed rooted to the spot, like an immovable object. "I just need time. To think," she said, and I could feel the weight of her words pressing down on me. I opened my mouth, desperate to understand, to fix it, but she held up her hand. "Don't try to stop me, okay? Don't even try." My mind scrambled for any logical explanation. Just yesterday, we were talking about a future together, making plans for next year's vacation. Now this? It felt like the ground had opened up beneath me, and I was falling into some kind of dark void, with no way out. "You're just going to leave?" I whispered, my voice breaking. "Just like that. I have to," she replied, her eyes not meeting mine anymore. She glanced at her phone, checking the time, a habit she did when she wanted to avoid any uncomfortable silence. "I don't want to explain. I just need space." I stood frozen in place, not even sure what to say. Space. Wasn't that what we had been giving each other for the past few months? The distant texts, the quiet evenings, the empty dinners we'd had? I couldn't help but feel the sting of betrayal creeping in. How had it all gotten this bad? And then, she said something that caught me completely off guard. "If you try to stop me, I'll call the cops." The words landed like a punch to my gut. Cops. I didn't even know how to respond. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. I watched her turn, grab her bag, and start walking toward the door. There was no hesitation, no second thoughts. She was gone. I don't know how long I stood there after she left. The house felt cold, the walls closing in on me. How had I let it come to this? I thought about calling her, begging her to come back, but I didn't. I knew deep down that wouldn't work. She had made her choice. And for the first time, I realized I had no control over this anymore. I went back to my desk, sat down, and tried to focus. Tried to ignore the pounding in my chest. But that nagging voice in my head kept asking, what did I do wrong? Hours later, my phone buzzed. I picked it up without thinking, expecting it to be a message from her. But instead, it was something else entirely. Something that made my blood run cold. A single text. "You'll regret this. I've already made my decision. Don't try to find me." My heart skipped. She was serious. This wasn't some fight that would blow over. This was real. And for the first time in a long time, I felt completely helpless. But that was just the beginning. I sat there, staring at the message on my phone. The words burned into my mind. "You'll regret this. I've already made my decision. Don't try to find me." I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. This wasn't just a simple disagreement. It felt like an end, one that I wasn't ready for, but one that seemed inevitable. I didn't know what to do. My hands were shaking, and for a moment, I wondered if I was losing my mind. This wasn't the woman I married. She didn't just up and leave without any explanation, without any fight. There had to be more to this. There had to be something deeper going on. I stared at the phone for what felt like hours, waiting for her to call, to explain. But there was nothing. Silence. Only the occasional buzz of my phone with a random notification I couldn't bring myself to care about. I needed answers. But all I had were questions. I couldn't sit still. I paced the house, my mind racing. What did she mean by, "I've already made my decision"? What decision? Had she been planning this for longer than I realized? Had there been signs I'd missed? We'd been together for 8 years, and I thought I knew her better than anyone. But right now, I felt like a stranger in my own home. I tried calling her several times, but each time it went straight to voicemail. I left a message, trying to stay calm, but I could hear the desperation in my voice as I begged her to talk to me, to let me know what was going on. I must have left 5 messages, maybe more, each one getting more frantic, more pleading. But still, no response. I tried texting, asking if she was okay, if there was anything I could do, but the silence only grew louder. That's when I decided I couldn't just wait around anymore. I needed to find out what was happening, what had changed. I grabbed my coat, heading out the door. I didn't know where she had gone, but I was damn sure going to find her. I wasn't going to let her walk away without at least hearing me out. She owed me that much. I drove aimlessly for hours, checking places I thought she might go, her mother's house, the coffee shop she liked, even the park where we used to walk together on weekends. But there was no sign of her. The streets felt empty, like everything had been sucked dry of life. My mind kept racing, imagining every possible scenario, each one worse than the last. I ended up at the bar. It wasn't where I expected to find her, but it was the only place I hadn't checked yet. I parked my car and walked in, scanning the room. Nothing. No sign of her. The bartender gave me a strange look when I asked if she'd been there. I knew I looked out of place. I wasn't the type of guy who came to a bar on my own, especially not at this time of night. But tonight was different. I sat down at the bar, ordering a drink I didn't want but needed. I didn't know why I was still looking for her. She had made it clear that she didn't want to be found. But something in me refused to accept that. Something in me just couldn't give up yet. The hours dragged on, the bar filling up with strangers who seemed to be oblivious to my spiraling world. I was drowning in my own thoughts, consumed by confusion and worry. Why hadn't she called? What was she doing? Was she with someone else? The thought made my stomach turn, but I couldn't ignore it. The possibility was there, hanging in the back of my mind like a dark cloud. As the night wore on, my phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't her. It was a message from a number I didn't recognize. You've made a mistake. You don't know what you're up against. She's not coming back. My heart skipped a beat. I read the message over and over, my mind racing. Who was this person? How did they know about her? What was going on? I tried to call the number, but it was disconnected. The silence in my apartment felt deafening now. I hadn't heard from her in hours, and now I was getting cryptic texts from someone I didn't know. Nothing made sense anymore. I spent the rest of the night scrolling through my phone, desperately searching for any clue, anything that could explain what was happening. That's when I found it. A photo. A single photo in a random thread from her social media account. It was from the weekend we had celebrated our anniversary, the weekend she'd left. It was a picture of her, sitting in a car with someone I didn't recognize. She was smiling, laughing, her arm resting on the shoulder of the man next to her. My heart sank. I wasn't sure what to feel, but I knew I couldn't ignore it. I zoomed in on the photo, my hands trembling. That was the moment everything changed for me. I stared at the photo for what seemed like an eternity. The image was so casual, so innocuous at first glance, yet it felt like a dagger in my chest. There she was, my wife, sitting in the passenger seat of a car, laughing with a man I didn't recognize. Her smile was wide and carefree, the kind of smile she used to give me when we first met, before all the stress of life crept in. But this time, it wasn't for me. And that realization hit me harder than I expected. I zoomed in on the man sitting next to her, trying to figure out who he was. There was something so familiar about his face, but I couldn't place him. I racked my brain, wondering if he was someone from her past, a former friend, or someone I hadn't met yet. My pulse quickened as I scrolled through her social media, searching for any other clues. But there was nothing more. No captions, no tags, nothing that could tell me where they were, what they were doing, or why she was with him. Just the image of her, so happy, so distant from me. I didn't know what to think anymore. The rational part of my brain told me that maybe I was overreacting, that maybe it was just a friend, someone she met on one of her trips or at work. But the rest of me, the part that had been hurting for days, couldn't help but feel betrayed. It was the smile. That was it. That was the look that told me she wasn't thinking about me in that moment. She wasn't thinking about us. I slammed the phone down on the table, the noise echoing in the quiet room. My head was spinning, my heart pounding. I had to know more. I couldn't just sit there and let this consume me. I grabbed my jacket, ignoring the ache in my chest, and left the apartment. The photo had ignited something in me. A fire, a need for answers that I could no longer ignore. I drove around aimlessly at first, not sure where to go. The photo had been taken in a car, so I assumed they hadn't been at home. But then it hit me. There was one place I hadn't checked. The hotel. The place where she had once mentioned going for a weekend getaway when I'd asked her about her plans. I wasn't even sure if it was the same one. But at this point, I couldn't afford to leave any stone unturned. I pulled into the parking lot of the hotel, my mind racing. The lights were dim, but there were a few cars still parked outside. I didn't know what I was expecting to find. Her car, his car, a suitcase in the lobby. But I had to see for myself. I couldn't keep guessing. I walked inside, the cool air from the lobby sending a shiver down my spine. The receptionist was too busy with paperwork to notice me, so I seized the opportunity and quickly walked to the elevators. My eyes darted around, hoping for some sign, any sign, that I was on the right track. The elevator dinged, and I stepped off at the second floor. I had no plan beyond that, no idea what I was even going to do if I found her. But I felt this strange pull, an instinct telling me to keep going, to follow the breadcrumbs. I walked down the hallway, the soft thud of my shoes the only sound in the silence. And then I saw it. The door to room 213 was slightly ajar. I didn't know what to expect, but I knew this was the moment. I couldn't turn back. I stood there for a moment, my breath catching in my throat, debating whether or not I should knock. But before I could decide, I heard laughter, her laugh. And then, a deep voice I didn't recognize. It was a laugh I hadn't heard in weeks, maybe longer. The kind that made my heart race, the one that used to light up my whole world. But now it felt foreign. I pressed my back against the wall, trying to steady my breathing. The voices faded, and I took a tentative step forward, moving closer to the crack in the door. I needed to see. I needed to know what was happening behind that door. I peered inside, just enough to see her sitting on the bed, her head tilted back in laughter. The man from the photo was sitting beside her, his arm casually draped across her shoulders. I felt the ground beneath me shift. My stomach churned as I realized the depth of what I was seeing. They were more than just friends. There was something intimate in the way they were sitting together, the way he touched her, the way she didn't pull away. My mind was reeling, every thought coming to a screeching halt. What is this? I asked myself over and over. Is this really happening? The door opened wider, and I froze. I had been standing too close, too long. A moment of panic washed over me, and without thinking, I took a step back. My heart pounded in my chest as I stumbled, trying to steady myself. The last thing I needed was for them to see me. The door closed behind me just as I turned the corner, my mind in a complete fog. I didn't know where to go, what to do. I had seen enough. But I hadn't expected this. I hadn't expected her to be the one pulling away. I drove home in a daze, the streets blurring past me. Every turn felt like it was pulling me deeper into a nightmare that I couldn't wake up from. I hadn't been prepared for what I had just seen. The room, the laughter, the intimacy between them, it was too much. My mind kept replaying that image of her, sitting there with him, her body so relaxed, her smile so genuine. It wasn't just friendly, it was personal. I had never seen her like that with anyone before. She had always been mine. And now, there she was, laughing with someone else, someone I didn't even know. I should have confronted them right then and there, barged into that room and demanded answers. But something held me back. Something deep inside told me that doing so would only make things worse. It wouldn't fix anything. It wouldn't stop the sinking feeling in my stomach. So, I did the only thing I knew how to do. I shut down. I didn't know what else to do, so I went home, crawled into bed, and pretended like everything was fine. The silence in the house felt suffocating, and the bed felt like a stranger's. I was used to her warmth next to me, the soft sound of her breathing. Now, the space beside me felt like an abyss. My phone buzzed again, but I didn't look at it. I couldn't. I already knew it was her, trying to explain, trying to apologize, trying to fix whatever was broken. But what could she say? What could she possibly say to make up for what I had just witnessed? I spent the rest of the night tossing and turning, my mind racing with questions that had no answers. What was I supposed to do now? Was it even possible to fix this? Could I even forgive her for what I had seen? The whole idea of us, of our marriage, felt like it was crumbling right before my eyes, and I couldn't stop it. I didn't know how to fight for us anymore. I didn't know if I should even try. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of my phone vibrating incessantly on the nightstand. It was her. I picked it up without thinking. already knowing what I was about to hear, already knowing that whatever words she said wouldn't be enough to undo the damage. But I answered anyway, a part of me still wanting to believe that maybe, just maybe, there was a chance to fix it. Hello. My voice came out ragged, like I hadn't slept at all, which I hadn't. I'm sorry, she said, her voice trembling on the other end. I didn't mean for you to find out this way. Please let me explain. I closed my eyes, trying to calm myself. My hands were shaking, my chest tight. I didn't know if I wanted to hear her explanation. I didn't know if I could hear it without completely breaking down. I'm listening, I said, though I wasn't sure if I was ready for what she would say. I don't know how to start. You have to understand, it's not what you think. It's not about him. It's about me. I've been feeling so lost, so disconnected from everything, especially from you. I don't even know when it started, but I felt this distance between us for so long. I felt a pang of frustration rising in me. Is that supposed to explain this? I snapped, my voice rising without meaning to. You think it's okay to just disappear, to be with someone else, and then act like it's all because you feel lost? What about me? What about us? I wasn't trying to hurt you, she whispered, her voice breaking. I thought I needed space. I thought I could handle it on my own. I thought I could find myself again. But I didn't. And now I'm scared I've lost you for good. I didn't know how to respond. A part of me wanted to yell at her, to tell her how much she'd hurt me, how much I felt betrayed. Another part of me just wanted to hear her explain, to understand why she had done it, to figure out if there was any hope left at all. But in the pit of my stomach, I felt something shift, something darker. As much as I wanted to believe that we could fix this, as much as I wanted to believe that she could truly regret what she'd done, something inside me told me that the damage was already done. The trust was broken, and no apology could fix it. I don't know if I can do this anymore, I said quietly, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. I don't know if I can just forgive you and pretend like nothing happened. I don't know if I can trust you again. I don't expect you to forgive me right away, she replied softly, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make it right. Please, don't give up on me yet. For a moment, I thought about it. I thought about what it would take to move forward, to rebuild everything we had. Could we ever go back to the way things were? Could I ever look at her the same way again after everything I had seen? But there was one question I couldn't get out of my head. One question that kept gnawing at me, even as I listened to her plead with me. Why did she go to him? I didn't ask it, though. Not yet. I couldn't. I wasn't ready for that conversation. But that question would haunt me for the rest of the day, for the rest of my life. I needed answers. I needed to know the truth. And no matter how much she apologized, no matter how many times she begged me to stay, I knew I couldn't move forward until I had that answer. The phone call ended, but the silence in the room was deafening. My mind was spinning, and my chest felt tight. I sat there, staring at the screen for a long time, my heart a chaotic mess of anger, confusion, and something I couldn't quite name. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But after everything I had seen, after the way she had walked out of my life without so much as a second thought, I wasn't sure how to. The doorbell rang, pulling me out of my thoughts. It was early, far too early for anyone to be stopping by. I wasn't expecting anyone. But I felt an eerie certainty in the pit of my stomach that I knew who it was. I opened the door, and sure enough, standing there was her. Her face pale, eyes wide, a mixture of guilt and determination written all over her features. I didn't invite her in. There was no way I could. After everything, I couldn't bring myself to be that vulnerable again, to let her back into my space, into my life, not when it felt like she had torn it all apart. But she didn't seem to care. Without waiting for me to speak, she walked right past me and into the living room. I need to talk, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I stood in the doorway, frozen for a moment. The weight of her presence was suffocating, and for a brief second, I couldn't find the words to respond. How could I even talk to her? Everything felt so broken. But despite the rage bubbling inside me, despite the hurt that was festering with every passing second, I couldn't stop myself from following her into the living room. Maybe I was still hoping for something, some shred of the woman I had fallen in love with, some explanation that would make all of this make sense. She sat down on the couch, her hands trembling as she pulled her bag onto her lap. She didn't look at me, instead staring at the floor, as if she was gathering the courage to say what needed to be said. But the silence between us felt unbearable. Why? I asked, my voice low, barely containing the anger that wanted to spill out. Why did you go to him? Why did you let it get this far? What was going on in your head? She didn't answer right away, her chest rising and falling with each shallow breath. Then, finally, she spoke, but her words came out in a quiet, fragile tone. I was lost. I didn't know how to deal with the way I was feeling anymore, she said, her eyes never meeting mine. I thought I could fix it by running away, by distancing myself from everything. I thought if I could just get away from you, from everything, I'd find some clarity. But instead, I only found more confusion. I wanted to scream at her, tell her how selfish that was, how irresponsible. But I couldn't. I was too numb, too broken, to say anything that would make a difference. You think I don't feel lost too? I finally said, my voice cracking. You think I don't see that we've been drifting apart for months? But I'm still here. I'm still trying, still giving everything I have to this. But you just walked away. I didn't mean for it to happen like this, she said, her voice breaking now. I thought I could find myself. I thought I could get away for a few days, think things through, and then I would come back, and we'd be okay. But when I was with him, I realized, I don't know who I am anymore. The words hung in the air between us, thick and suffocating. She had left me behind, wandered off into some unknown space, and had found comfort in the arms of someone else. How could she expect me to just forget that? To understand? Who was he? I asked, my tone sharp. I need to know. Who is he? And why did you feel the need to go to him? Her face contorted with guilt, but she didn't look at me. Instead, she wiped her eyes and took a deep breath. He's just someone I met recently. At work, she said quietly. It wasn't supposed to mean anything. I thought I was just looking for someone to talk to, someone who would understand, someone who could help me sort through all the mess in my head. But I never meant for it to go this far. I didn't think I could lose myself like this. I felt my chest tighten. Work? This guy was someone from her work? The whole thing felt like a betrayal on a deeper level now. Not only had she turned to someone else, but she had done it in the most unexpected and seemingly innocent way. How could I compete with that? How could I ever trust her again? I stood there, the weight of everything crashing down on me. The years we'd spent together, the life we had built, the love I had given her, none of it seemed to matter anymore. In the span of a few days, it had all been torn apart. I felt a sense of finality creeping in, a realization that maybe we were done. Maybe there was no going back. But as I looked at her, sitting there on my couch, tears staining her face, I couldn't help but wonder, was this the end? The phone call ended, but the silence in the room felt like it was choking me. I hadn't expected to feel this way. I thought I could handle it. I thought I could listen to her, process it all, and figure out whether there was still a way to salvage this. But when the line went dead, I found myself staring at the screen, unable to make sense of the words she had said. She was asking for forgiveness, but it didn't feel like enough. How could it? How could she expect me to forgive her when everything I had built my life around felt like it had been turned to dust? I couldn't sit there anymore. I grabbed my coat, my keys, and without a plan, walked out of the apartment. I needed air. I needed to get out of my head. I couldn't keep sitting in the suffocating silence that followed that call. The night outside was cold, but the sharpness of the air didn't help clear the fog in my mind. It was like every single thing I had ever trusted was slipping away, and I was powerless to stop it. I ended up walking through the city, not really caring where I was going. The streets were dark, empty, the city sleeping while my mind raced. All I could think about was her, the woman I loved, who had become a stranger in my eyes. I replayed everything in my head, trying to piece together the moments that had led to this. The quiet dinners, the lack of affection, the long silences between us. I had noticed it, of course, but I had kept telling myself it would pass. That maybe we were just going through a rough patch. But this was different. She didn't just leave for a weekend getaway. She didn't just disappear emotionally. She betrayed me. There was no other way to put it. I walked past a bar and saw the familiar neon sign glowing in the distance. I didn't want to go in, but I felt like I needed to be around people, even if I didn't know them. I pushed the door open and stepped inside, the warmth of the bar hitting me immediately. The chatter of strangers, the clinking of glasses, the low hum of music, it all felt like a faraway world compared to the one I was trapped in. I ordered a drink, my hands still shaking as I took it from the bartender. I didn't even taste it. I didn't care. What did I care about anymore? The woman I had shared everything with, my life, my trust, My heart was gone. Not physically, but emotionally. And I was left wondering if I had ever really known her at all. As I took a seat at the bar, I pulled my phone out of my pocket. There was a new message. It was from her again. "I'm sorry. Please don't shut me out. I need to see you." I didn't respond immediately. Part of me wanted to throw the phone across the room. Another part of me wanted to hear her voice again, to know if maybe, just maybe, there was some truth behind her words. Was she really sorry, or was this just another empty attempt to fix something that couldn't be fixed? I let the message sit there, unanswered. The longer I stared at it, the more I realized I didn't know what I was hoping for. What was I waiting for? Was I really going to let her back in after everything? After what I had seen? After the way she had turned her back on me? I finished my drink, paid, and left the bar. The night felt heavier now, each step I took feeling like a burden. My mind kept circling back to one thing. One question I hadn't dared ask yet, but that was eating away at me. Who was he? She had told me it was someone from work, but that answer didn't feel like enough. Why had she gone to him? Was there something between them that went beyond comfort, beyond friendship? The thought made my stomach turn, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. The next day, I couldn't sit in the apartment anymore. I couldn't stay there, surrounded by memories of her, of us. I needed answers, and if she wasn't going to give them to me, I would find them myself. I went to her office, my steps heavy, my mind more determined than ever. The receptionist gave me a curious look when I walked in, but I didn't care. I wasn't here to play nice. I wasn't here to ask for her to come back. I was here to find out what the hell was really going on. "I need to speak to her," I said, my voice sharper than I intended. The receptionist hesitated, clearly uncomfortable with the tension in the air. "She's in a meeting right now," she said, but there was a hesitation in her voice, something I couldn't quite place. I didn't wait for her to finish. I walked past the desk and toward the hallway that led to her office. I knew it was a bad idea, barging in on her at work like this, but I didn't care. I needed answers, and I needed them now. When I reached her office, the door was slightly ajar. I pushed it open without knocking, and there she was, sitting at her desk, with him. My heart dropped into my stomach. She wasn't just talking to him. She was leaning toward him, her hand resting on the edge of the desk, her fingers almost touching his. He was smiling at her, and she was smiling back. It was the same smile I had seen in the photo, the one that didn't belong to me. For a moment, I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. It was like I was frozen in place, watching the woman I loved more than anything in the world, with someone else, someone who clearly meant more than just a passing acquaintance. I finally spoke, my voice barely above a whisper. "So, this is where you've been." She froze when she heard my voice. Her eyes widened in shock, and the smile that had been playing on her lips faded instantly. For a moment, the world around me went quiet, just the soft hum of the air conditioning and the pounding of my heart in my chest. I couldn't believe I was standing there, watching the scene unfold. I had come here, expecting to find the woman I had spent so many years with, the one who used to laugh with me, who used to hold me close every night. But now, all I saw was a stranger. And worse, she wasn't alone. I didn't know what hurt more, seeing her so comfortable with him, or the fact that she looked guilty when she saw me. Was this how far it had gone? Was this what she'd been hiding? He stood up from his chair quickly, almost defensively. "Look, man," he said, raising his hands in a gesture that seemed half apologetic, half protective. "I don't know what's going on here, but—" "No, you don't." I cut him off, my voice sharper than I expected. "And you shouldn't have anything to do with this." I turned back to her, my eyes meeting hers, trying to find the woman I had once known. But there was nothing there. Her eyes, which used to shine with warmth and trust, now held only uncertainty and fear. "What's going on, Alice?" I asked, the words slipping out before I could stop them. "Why did you think this was okay? Why did you go this far?" Her lips trembled as she opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out at first. She glanced at the man standing beside her, then back at me, a look of helplessness crossing her face. I never meant for this to happen like this," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I swear it wasn't supposed to." "Not supposed to what?" I demanded, my fists clenching at my sides. The anger that had been simmering inside me was now bubbling over. Not supposed to fall for him? Not supposed to betray me? I felt my throat tighten as I fought back the rage that threatened to spill out. "How long has this been going on?" She didn't answer immediately. She just stared at me, as if trying to find the right words to fix everything. But there was no fixing this. Not now. Not after what I had seen. Alice, I said, my voice steady despite the storm brewing inside me. I don't care how much time you've spent with him, how many conversations you've had, how much comfort you found. What matters now is that you made a choice. You made a choice to leave me, to let someone else fill the space I should have been in. So tell me, why? She shook her head, her hands trembling as she reached for the desk, steadying herself. I never meant to hurt you. I swear, she said, almost pleading. I was just trying to find myself. I felt so lost, like I didn't know who I was anymore. I thought if I could just take a step back, if I could just breathe, things would make sense. But I was wrong. I was looking in all the wrong places. Yeah, I said bitterly, taking a step forward. And I'm the wrong place? Was that the problem? That you didn't feel like I was enough? No, that's not it, she said quickly, her voice rising with panic. It's not that, I swear. I didn't know what I needed. I was lost, and he was just there. He was a friend, someone I could talk to, and somewhere along the way, it turned into something more. I never meant for it to happen like this. I never wanted to hurt you. Her words stung. They were meant to explain, but they only deepened the wound. She was sorry, but the apology felt empty now. I wasn't sure I could believe anything she said anymore. I turned my back on her, running a hand through my hair in frustration. My mind was racing, my heart a mess of hurt and disbelief. How could I stand here, listening to her justify this? How could I have been so blind, so trusting, all these years? And now, I was left standing in the ruins of a relationship I thought was solid, a love I thought was unshakable. Do you love him? I asked, the question slipping out before I could stop it. The words felt foreign, even to me, but I needed to know. I needed to understand if she had truly moved on, if I had been nothing more than a placeholder in her life. She paused, her eyes flicking toward him, and for a brief moment, I saw something in her expression, a hesitation. It was fleeting, but it was there. And that told me everything. Honestly, she said, her voice barely above a whisper, I don't know. I don't know what I'm feeling right now. That was it. That was all I needed to hear. She didn't know. She didn't know what she felt for me anymore. And that was the final blow. I stood there, paralyzed by the realization that the woman I had spent years loving, the woman I had trusted with my heart, no longer felt the same way. She was lost, and so was I. Without another word, I turned and walked out of her office, the door closing behind me with a finality that echoed in my chest. I didn't know where I was going or what I was supposed to do next. But I couldn't stay there, trapped in the same place, in the same life that had now become a lie. I walked down the hallway, my footsteps heavy, each one echoing off the walls like a reminder of everything I had just lost. I didn't know where I was going or even what I was searching for, but I couldn't stay in that office, couldn't stay in that moment, with everything crashing down around me. I didn't realize I had been holding my breath until I stepped outside and the cool air hit me, and with it came a flood of emotions I had been trying to push aside. Anger, heartbreak, disbelief. They all hit me at once, and for a moment, I felt like I couldn't breathe. But then something shifted inside me. Maybe it was the realization that I couldn't control what had happened, that no matter how hard I tried, some things were just out of my hands. I could only control what came next. And I wasn't about to let this be the end of everything. I wasn't about to let this define me, let it break me. I sat down on a bench nearby, letting the weight of everything settle. For the first time in what felt like ages, I allowed myself to think clearly. I wasn't going to beg her to stay. I wasn't going to let myself be someone who clung to the past, to something that was no longer there. I thought about all the things I had wanted, the things I had hoped for, the life I had once imagined with her. But deep down, I knew something had changed. Maybe it was the distance between us, maybe it was the lies I had told myself, but I was starting to see clearly. The path we were on was no longer healthy for either of us. We both needed time, not to fix what was broken, but to heal separately. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of that decision settle into my bones. I didn't need to know what the future held. I just knew that I couldn't keep dragging myself through the wreckage of the past. The sound of my phone ringing snapped me out of my thoughts. I looked at the screen, and for a moment, I almost didn't want to answer. It was her. But I did. I swiped to answer, holding the phone to my ear. Hello, I said, my voice steady but calm. I'm sorry. Alice's voice came through, shaky and regretful. I didn't mean to hurt you. I know I messed up, but I still care about you. I really do. I closed my eyes, letting her words wash over me. It wasn't easy to hear, but I realized, for the first time in a long while, that I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't desperate. I wasn't looking for a quick fix or some magic answer. I had come to terms with the fact that life wasn't going to look the same as it once had, and that was okay. We both needed to move forward, whether it was together or apart. I know you're sorry, I said softly, and I appreciate that. But I think we both need time. Time to figure out what we really want, what's best for us. I can't keep holding on to something that's not there anymore. There was silence on the other end for a few moments before she spoke again. I understand, she said, her voice quiet. I think I've known that, too. I didn't know how to face it. You're facing it now, I said, a small smile tugging at my lips. It wasn't a perfect solution, but it was the start of something new. We're both facing it now. I hope you find what you're looking for, she said, her voice softer now. You deserve to be happy, even if it's not with me. And you deserve that, too. I replied, my heart lighter than it had been in weeks. Take care, Alice. I will. You too, she said, before the line went quiet. I sat there on the bench for a long time after, the world around me still and peaceful. The noise of the city faded into the background. It wasn't a happy ending. It wasn't the one I had envisioned. But it was an ending I could live with, one that allowed both of us to heal. I didn't need to chase after the past anymore. I didn't need to hold on to something that wasn't right for me. I was ready to step forward, to focus on the future, to find my own peace. It was a fresh start, not just for Alice, but for me too. And for the first time in a long time, I could feel hope slowly creeping back in. There was a future ahead of me, and it didn't have to be defined by the mistakes or the pain of the past. I stood up from the bench, took a deep breath, and walked forward into whatever came next.